Question number 3 on education from Mr. Harbaugh. Since the passage of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act in 1965, federal funding for K through 12 and college education has grown to almost $200 billion a year. At the same time, overall K through 12 student achievement has remained basically the same, and college student debt has reached $1 trillion. In light of this situation, Mr. Joseph Muir of Mansfield, Ohio, submitted through a Google form, wants to know whether Congress should change the way the federal government is involved in education. For example, should federal education money be cut or should it be increased?
Thank you. We need to maintain local control of schools, of primary and secondary schools. When it comes to institutes of higher learning and advanced degrees, I think we are at a critical juncture in American history where we can actually marry two problems and turn them into solutions. The problems being this epic load of college debt that so many students take on because they want to better themselves. And what I see is a crisis of citizenship. Imagine if we gave young people who wanted a chance to serve their country in exchange for some help with that college debt, the opportunity to do a year of national service. I think the time has come for a year of national service. Family of teachers. Anne Marie spent the first half of her career in the toughest school she could find. Both of my parents taught. My father-in-law spent 38 years in Medina High School. And our schools should be palaces, yet they are falling apart. All 3 elementary schools in Ashland are over 60 years old. And we have a congressman who doesn't listen, who doesn't appreciate the gravity of the problem, who doesn't even listen to teachers. I had a conversation with Mr. Davis, who taught high school for decades in Medina County. And he used to assign his students an extra credit assignment to reach out to a representative at the State House or in Congress, a state senator, a congressman. And when they got a letter back, they would read it in front of the classroom and get a little extra credit. Mr. Davis had to tell his students to stop writing to Congressman Gibbs because he never wrote back. And the symptoms of that inattention are everywhere you look, not just the 3 elementary schools in Massillon that are over 60 years old, but the half of the districts in the state that have deteriorating schools, the fact that we had to shut down schools this fall because they didn't have air conditioning. Imagine if we shut down a business and sent everyone home because it was too hot to work there. We wouldn't put up with it. Yet somehow, that is okay when it comes to education. And worst of all, the staffing levels. I talk to teachers who are so overworked, and most of all counselors who have between 300 and 400 students. They're not talking to those kids about their educational pathway. They're worried about which kids are hungry. They're worried about which kids are on the verge of a mental crisis that might turn into a catastrophe. And let me boil it down to one number, 250. For years, the teachers in my family have counted on a $250 tax credit to help defray some of the costs of the out-of-pocket expenses that every teacher takes on to run a classroom. In the tax bill that Congressman Gibbs voted for, billions of dollars of write-offs were afforded to corporations. That $250 tax credit for teachers was eliminated. That gives you a sign of his priorities.
First time and not have a record, you pretty much say anything you want. $250 tax credit our way because we lowered everybody's tax bill. You're going to pay less taxes this year unless you pay a lot more money. I can guarantee you're paying less taxes. Generally, my feelings on education, it's really a state and local issue. Now, I don't have a problem with federal grant money, and I'll get to that here in a second. But you know, every time Washington makes mandates, like they did the No Child Left Behind, I know our school districts really love that, right? Well, we passed a bill to change that. They don't have to have that mandate anymore. They don't have that extra cost. They can do what they want. The state's not punished for it. So the curriculum and all that should be designed at the local level and state level. And one thing that we see happening, especially in higher education, we see some competition happening. You know, I travel the district. We've got some great community colleges here, technical schools, and I know it's not the proper place to say this, a 4-year school, but I'm going to say it about pickleball. I can't help it. But I think he knows, too, the competition's a good thing. But we're seeing kids graduate from high school, some with associate degrees, some going to these, two more years of training, getting a $60,000 a year job and no debt. And that's putting pressure on our traditional four-year schools, and they're doing a better job. I know here at Ashland University, they've cut their tuition, and I know at Ohio State University, if you go in as a freshman now, they guarantee you that tuition all the way through for 4 years, and they guarantee you'll be done in 4 years, not this 4.5 or 5 year stuff. And so we passed the Strengthening Career Technical Education 21st Century Act here in July. President signed into law. Also, we've done some things, $1.9 billion for career and technical adult education, and also more than $5 million, $300 million, $5 million above last year's level for veterans, more educational levels to help our veterans get the training they need so they can go out and get a good job. But like I said, the Common Core, we did away with that. Funding in this fiscal year 2019 started October 1, the appropriation bill. Signed into law, overall $71 billion for the Department of Education. That's a $581 million above fiscal year 18. And we did for the Title I grants to help $100 million more for help for financial assistance to local education in schools with numbers of children with low-income families. The IDEA program, the Gear Up, the TRIO program, we funded that, increased the funding for mental health services for students and the bullying prevention program. So those are the things the federal government can do. The federal government should not be dictating to the states and locals and mandating it. But if they want to send some of the money back to them, I've been supportive of that. Thanks.
It is about, it's a question of priorities. Congressman Gibbs managed to find billions upon billions of dollars for tax write-offs for corporations, for pencils and paper and office supplies, while eliminating that small gesture, $250 for teachers. I have traveled to more high schools and elementary schools and middle schools across this district than I can count. And you know one of the most common questions I get? Who is our congressman? Because they have never seen him.